On June 23, 2025, the night sky over Qatar erupted as Iran launched ballistic missiles at the Al Hudud base, an airport facility near Al Udeid Air Base, the largest American military hub in the Middle East. This was a direct response to a recent U.S. airstrike on Iran's nuclear facilities, marking a dramatic escalation in a long-simmering conflict. The attack, dubbed Operation Glad Tidings of Victory, was Tehran's message to Washington. Iran would not tolerate further provocations. Al Udeid, home to thousands of U.S. troops and the nerve center of regional operations, was not directly hit. The missiles targeted only the nearby Al Hudud airport facility. No homes or the U.S. base itself were damaged. Iran's strike was calculated, designed to avoid mass casualties and major destruction, signaling a desire to retaliate without triggering all-out war. As the dust settled, the world watched anxiously, uncertain if this was the start of a wider conflict or a shocking event that might force all sides to step back. The fate of the region now hung in the balance, with Iran, the US, Israel and mediators like Qatar facing critical decisions. Would this be the spark for a regional war, or the shock needed to pursue a fragile peace? The missile strike was the climax of decades of US-Iran hostility, intensified since the US withdrew from the 2015 nuclear deal and reimposed sanctions. Iran responded with nuclear advancements and support for regional proxies, fueling a volatile standoff. The immediate trigger, a brutal 12-day conflict between Iran and Israel, with Israeli airstrikes deep inside Iran and fierce Iranian vows of retaliation. The US escalated by striking Iranian nuclear sites, crossing a red line for Tehran. Iran's leadership felt compelled to respond directly, both to restore deterrence and to save face at home and abroad. The attack on Al Udeid was a calculated move, meant to show strength, but carefully managed to avoid a full-scale war. This dangerous balancing act led directly to missiles flying toward Qatar. At 7:40 p.m. sirens blared as Iran launched up to 19 missiles at Al Udeid Air Base. US and Qatari air defenses sprang into action, intercepting nearly every missile. Only one missile landed harmlessly on the base, causing no casualties or damage. Evidence suggests Iran engineered the attack to be more symbolic than destructive, even providing a subtle advance warning. Aircraft had been moved, and the base was nearly empty, indicating anticipation of the strike. The base remained fully operational, and leaders in Washington were not forced into immediate retaliation. Iran demonstrated its reach, but left an off-ramp for de-escalation. The attack was military theater, loud enough to be heard but not to start a war. The world responded swiftly. Former President Trump downplayed the attack, thanking Iran for the warning and signaling openness to de-escalation. Qatar condemned the strike but used its diplomatic leverage to push for a ceasefire between the US, Iran and Israel. International bodies like the UN and EU urgently called for restraint, warning of catastrophic consequences if violence escalated. Regional allies, alarmed by Iran's capabilities, watched anxiously but saw hope in the push for diplomacy. The attack reinforced Qatar's role as a key mediator, keeping communication channels open. The world was united in wanting to avoid a larger conflict, but the path forward was uncertain. Leaders now faced a critical choice: escalate or seize the chance for peace. Iran's strike was a message to Washington: American assets are within reach, and Iran will retaliate if provoked. Yet the attack's restraint, advance warning, non-critical targets, no casualties, signaled Iran did not want all-out war. It was a symbolic act, meant to satisfy hardliners and project strength, while leaving room for diplomacy. For the region, it was a stark reminder of Iran's missile capabilities and willingness to bypass proxies. Every country now had to reassess its security, knowing direct conflict was possible. The attack underscored the urgent need for dialogue and de-escalation to prevent a wider war. The future depended on how this violent message was interpreted: retaliation or a pivot to diplomacy. The region stood at a crossroads, with the next moves shaping its fate. In the aftermath, a fragile ceasefire, brokered by Qatar and the US, brought relief, but the peace was precarious. The underlying issues, Iran's nuclear ambitions, regional rivalries, and US involvement, remained unresolved. Trust was absent, and any miscalculation could reignite conflict. The missile attack had redrawn red lines, creating a new, more dangerous equilibrium. Diplomacy had pulled the region back from the brink, but the crisis was far from over. The choices made in the coming days would determine if this was a turning point towards stability or just a pause before the next storm. The world watched, hoping for peace but bracing for renewed conflict. The fate of the Middle East now hung on the decisions of its leaders.